And now, live from Level 5 Productions on the island of Milleronia, it's The Larry Miller Show. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and everyone who really has no idea what Cinco De May-yo is. Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Larry Miller Show. I'm Larry Miller, but in a way, aren't we all? And boy, oh boy, it's good to be back. It's always good to be back. I love this show very much, and Colonel Jeff does too. We like doing it very much, and so does Ozzy the dog. And other family members, and you know what? And I hope you do too. And boy, it's a gorgeous day today. Really special, really beautiful. And of course, the music helps. That's the Chance Phelps Orchestra and the Ann V. Coates Dancers, featuring boy tenor Patrick Joseph, asking the musical question, do flat earthers believe in global warming? Well, that's a heck of a question, Patrick. Very smart and very witty. As Colonel Jeff pointed out to me, that, there is a Flat Earth Society. There is a group of people who just don't get together to play backgammon. They get together because they're the Flat Earth Society. And they don't believe in a global Earth, a round Earth, a planet Earth. They think it's, well, like the old days, like 500, 1,000 years ago, just a flat Earth. And I don't know, and by the way, they get a tip of the hat from me. I don't know actually what they believe. We don't have a brochure from them, but that's what they do. They're the Flat Earth Society. And do they believe in global warming? Patrick wants to know. And the answer to that is, like all smart people, no, they don't. They don't believe in anything except the flat earth. And they believe in getting together and being friends and family for a long, long time on the flat earth. So, good question, Patrick. But do flat earthers believe in global warming? Probably not. And there's so much to tell about the other folks I mentioned today. Well, you'll hear more about Chance Phelps Orchestra later, and you may already know. But the Ann V. Coates Dancers, boy oh boy, Ann just passed away at 92 years old. She was a film editor who won an Oscar for Lawrence of Arabia. And that's a great movie, and she sure deserved one for it. And in addition, she worked with Milos Forman and Sidney Lumet and many wonderful directors, and was very highly respected. She also had, by the way, 4 more Oscar nominations. So, Ann V. Coates, God bless you and rest in peace, and on you go. To what? Who knows? But you know what? It's wonderful that last week, as you know, the last new live episode we did was also about wrestling, professional wrestling. And Colonel Jeff posted on Facebook and on Twitter that, which are words I don't get to say a lot, by the way. It doesn't come up. The need for those is absent. But you know what? He posted, he said, we're looking for wrestling nicknames for Larry, for me. And I thought that's a funny idea anyway. Good work. And you know what, folks? You're a terrific audience, and that's never lightly said. And a lot of you wrote in some great nicknames, and they're good enough that I'd like to read them to you. Timothy M. Noble wrote one suggesting the Lumpy Chalupa. And I think that's a great nickname, too. I had to say to the Colonel, what's a chalupa again? And we wasn't exactly sure, but it's like a Mexican food, right? Yeah, that's close enough. And Chris Sinkovich wrote in, Leisure Suit Larry, which I think is very funny. Jason Halpern wrote, Literal Larry, in that he will literally kill you. He will strangle you and choke off your air supply until you pass away. Boy, is that ever true. But also, that for real, that's a line that I put into the Nutty Professor movies. I think one good scene there, because that's right, I'm the dean. It's funny that it's actually sad that I have to remember these things. Wait a minute. I remember that movie, but you know what? Those are good movies too, and thanks, Jason. Joe Massett wrote in, The Boy Tenor. Your special move would be a kick to the throat called the laryngitis. These are smart, good jokes. John Clement, I think the picture over his left shoulder says it all. The comic. Well, that's very sweet, by the way, and I think you're right. And that was Colonel Jeff and I figured out that here at Stately Miller Manor, where we are today, for another reason I'll explain later, has had the Colonel taking a picture of me for our website. Boy, it's so hard for me to say all those things correctly. And that was correct, but just slow correct. It was for the sort of the disturbed Uncle Larry. As usual, I'm just glad you all hear that too. In any case, thanks, John. David Charles Hatfield. By the way, I should say, forgive me for interrupting, but to John Clement, the comic was a great play I was in. And it still is a great play. It was written by Mark Schiff. And, and it was me and Henry Lubati, or Henri Lubati, because he's French. That's funny. I didn't find out till a year after the play closed, by the way, but he's a great guy. Oh, it was all sorts of fun doing that, and a great play by Mark Schiff. David Charles Hatfield wrote, Ruby. That's very cool. That's from the 5 Levels of Drinking. Thank you, David. Mark Amundsen wrote, Man Molehill Miller. That just made us laugh. And it's, of course, I don't even know why. I just think it's good. It's a good one. Lloyd Woodall wrote, The Bald Bomber. And then in parentheses he wrote, I'm bald too. You're in good company. Byron Desprez Berry, and I hope that's pronounced correctly, suggested Baron von Raschke. And it suddenly dawned on me, because I didn't know exactly what that meant. I think that was a character I played in something. Shouldn't that be? I mean, that's got to be close enough, right? It's not like a great plumber. Even though my grandfather and my uncle were. But Richard Marino wrote in, The Chunk. David N. Taylor suggested Bear Claw. That's pretty good. Bear Claw Miller. And Dan Kirsch thought God's Flashlight, which is also very sweet. It's from the 5 Levels of Drinking too. And thanks, pal. Mark Pitta. Oh, good Lord. He's a friend, a great comic and a good friend. Plaid the Impaler. Thanks, Mark. That's a good one. Ray Morgan says, El Martini. That's a good name. That's clever, too. Boy, good one. Brad Ellis suggested Level 5. Boy. And by the way, I've been at Level 5. And more times than I'd care to say. Although at the time, as always with drinking, it sure seemed like a good idea at the time. Andy Tedder suggested The Mild Stallion. Dave D'Anjou suggests Grandpaw. 2 words, Grand Paw. Like a dog's paw, but grandpa, grandpaw. Anyway, good one. Joe Cucinotti says, Commander, come on, which is a good one. That's also from the Adam Carolla show. And I do that. I'm doing it tomorrow again. In fact, I love him. Love him. Love the show. And that's for the bit we do the hypothetical road trip. I should know these things. Why do I continue to not know the actual things I do? Anyway, let's see. Ed Morris wrote in, Larry the Screaming Skull. That's great. And they're even better when I don't even know why. It's just great, like a good wrestling nickname should be. Idea Guy suggests Mad Mensch Miller. That's good. Andy Kemp suggests Killer. And as the Colonel pointed out, when you think about it, when you put it all together, wait, that's even better than he thought. It's Killer Miller. Timothy Glunt, which is a heck of a name, by the way. And that's a pretty good nickname, too. Timothy Glunt suggests The Noggin. I like that. Justin Bradford suggests The Golden State Killer. Boy, watch out for him. And Kurt Milner says, how about Pluto the Doorman? And that's great. I think, and then we thought that's from a Seinfeld episode I did, where I was the doorman. Oh, the Colonel just suggested that Pluto is Pluto the doorman. Yeah, from the end of the show that I always love to say, that because it's true. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. And folks, thanks. Those are fun and funny and witty. And smart. Oh, wait, that's me. Fun, funny, witty, smart. Yeah, that's me. I'm sorry. And but really, those are all great. Thank you for playing along. And the Colonel will come up with more ideas like that. So thanks for being part of it. And by PayPal. That's right, PayPal. And no better time to say than now. If you enjoy my show, and why wouldn't you? And you'd like to send a few bucks here to help out, and why wouldn't you? Well, you can do it through PayPal. It's a great organization that, you know what? And sometimes I think if you work with PayPal, you're actually saving the world yourself, and who knows, maybe you are. And but instead of saying well, donate this or pay what you like or join the Platinum Club or whatever that is, I always like to say, just buy us some drinks here. Buy us some drinks, because there are different levels, level 1 through 5, all the way up to... We're driving to Florida! God's Flashlight. That was a good one, too. And Ruby. Thank you, folks. So you know what? Look for the PayPal banner on our website. You can go anywhere. You can get there 1,000 different ways on your own laptop, your iPhone, whatever it is. You can get to PayPal, but let us do it for you. What you do is, just go to our website, which is LarryMillerPodcast.com. Is something to do with the air today, or am I just getting dumber? Is there LarryMillerPodcast.com. Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. Da, 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 da. Now that was fun, but I have no idea what it is. It sounded a little like my voice. Good Lord. By the way, I love sending tributes to Tom Mix, as you folks know, and written in the past you have, and said, by the way, who is Tom Mix, or why do you like him so much? And yesterday I did some ADR work on a movie that's coming out that I'm in, called Act 2. And it's a terrific, if you love show business, you love all of it. And I love looping 2, or ADR work as they call it, which means you're re-recording. You're going over something. Either they have new lines for you, or they think they can beat the sound recording on one of the lines that was done live. And these places are really good, that they're top pros who work on, sound and sound editing, and they do a terrific job. And they also always have posters from, I love old movie posters, and this group had it. Oh boy, they would sound master. I was just there yesterday. That's one of the reasons I'm not on Milleronia now. I can't remember their name, but they had a couple of great Tom Mix posters. And these, remember, are movie posters that are drawn. And they were wonderful at the time. People loved them, and I still love them. And, they have them from all over. They have James Stewart in The Spirit of St. Louis, and which is a terrific movie, by the way. And to see that guy, look at him, look at Jimmy Stewart. He looks so fabulous. Well, it's drawn. So, you know what, though? Who's on the mountain? Tom Mix. I will always love that guy. And as they say at the end of the movie Tombstone there, as the great Robert Mitchum narrates, that, that Wyatt Earp died in Los Angeles, or Los Angeles, as he says. And in 1929, the Colonel and I and Dr. Chris had a drink for one of our nights out, one of our fried chicken nights. No, we had 2 drinks at the bar there of Musso and Frank on Hollywood Boulevard. And that place was built in 1917 or 1914, something, 1917, I think. And Wyatt Earp liked it and hung out there. And that's good enough for me. I mean, if you just think about it, where we had our drinks and where we stood at that bar is right where Wyatt Earp stood. And, that's another reason. Gee, why do people like Hollywood? That's why, folks. I mean, come on. The real Wyatt Earp, who's been portrayed so well in so many movies and so well by Kurt Russell. And Josephine Marcus, whom he falls in love with and marries, and played by the great actress Dana Delaney, who also happens to be just as gorgeous as any actress America has ever made for Hollywood. And in any case, boy, oh boy. So you know what? Look for the PayPal banner on our website. And just click it there and then go take a nap in your lazy boy chair. And every little bit helps us keep the old leg lamp lit over here. And thanks to everyone who has contributed already. It means a lot. And thank you to those of you who are about to do so, because I do my own ads so well. Thanks, folks. And thanks PayPal, for helping us also the way you do. And that brings me to my favorite part of the show, the joke of the week. Well, I love this. I love this part. As you know, nothing better than passing on a good joke to people. And I always like to say to you, and I mean it every time, if you like it, pass it on yourselves to your friends and family and loved ones. And this one comes from the United States Marines, because our older boy, who is, as I've told you before, a United States Marine, and he got a couple of weeks off. He finished his second deployment, and he came, home to the United States from that. And he then went to weapons training in Arizona for a little while. And then he went and saw some of his old friends at the Marine Air bases on the coast of California, there at Miramar and Pendleton. And, they have a good time together. They go through a lot of memories from the courses they took. Oh, wait, no, they don't. They drink for 3 days. That's right. I knew it was one of those two. But you know what? He's a great guy. It's such a treat to have him back. He made his own breakfast this morning here. It's his mom, my wife, and me, and him, and his younger brother is at school, at college, And well, we're going to see him soon. And I know it doesn't sound that romantic to say he made his own breakfast, but boy, folks, for a young man who's also a Marine, to watch him put a couple of eggs in the pan on some butter, and then he said, "Wow, this pan is big enough for a third egg." And I said, "Put it in, take another egg, put it in." You could have said 10 eggs, put it in, put them all in, and he toasted a bagel with that, half a bagel, because that's the way he likes it. And then he also have a glass of milk, and which again, I know this doesn't sound that intriguing to you, but boy, my wife and I just watched him, just stared at him. Look at that, he's eating. And he made if I do say so myself, a great breakfast. Just fried eggs, not sunny side up. He flipped them, cut the 3 eggs separately, and then flipped them. I know, it doesn't sound like he's invented something, and he kept saying, I'm just eating breakfast. And there's his mom and dad just staring at him, grinning. And by the way, he's going to go out for lunch with me and the Colonel after the show. And that's the same sort of thing. And then we'll have lunch. We'll have lunch together. But you know what? It means a lot. And this joke is from him. That he said, you know what? I said, do you have any jokes you've heard that you like? Because, why don't I tell it on the joke of the week? And he said, well, there's one I just heard. It's kind of like 2, but it's really 1. And I said, great. You know what? Tell me now. And here it is. 3 friends, 3 fellas are out and about. They're just strolling along. They're walking past a construction site, and they see a big pile of bricks that haven't been used yet next to a mud hole, a big mud hole. And right next to it is full of, it's mud. And 3 young bucks, they're out there, and one says, hey, you know what? Why don't we see who can take one of those bricks and get it deeper into the mud than the other? And they all were like young guys. Sure, that sounds great. Let's do that. And well, the first guy takes a brick up, and he just looks up into the sky, takes a brick and throws it way high into the sky, and that brick comes down and bam, hits that mud hole and goes down 3 feet. And the second guy says, that's pretty good. That's a good start, but I can beat that. I can beat you there. And he picks up a brick too, and he tosses it even higher than the first guy. And that thing comes down and bam, hits the mud. 5 feet it goes down. And then the third guy says, you know what? You guys are doing great here, but I can do this. I can beat this. I can beat both of you. And he takes up a brick, and he kind of like a discus throw. He heaves it one way, heaves it the other way. He's just swinging it with his arm, and the arm goes round and round and round, and whoa, he throws it way up high, higher than the guys put together. So high, he throws it so high, it doesn't come down. And you know what, folks? Some time later, there's a middle-aged woman, and she's got to go fly and see some family members, and she brings her favorite parrot with her because, they're very close, and she got the parrot on her shoulders, and she walks up to the airline. This airline, by the way, the name of this airline is No Tobacco and No Parrots. And she says, this is the only place she could get a seat, by the way. She didn't want to, there's not her type of airline, but she got to go, and she got to take the seat she got. And so she takes the parrot, sort of tiptoes away from the security section, and just goes behind a column there and takes the parrot and just stuffs it down her blouse and says, all right, take it easy now. Just you keep quiet, and we'll get this done. The parrot's down her blouse, and she walks back to the security section, goes through. They don't stop her. And she gets on the plane. Nobody stops her. It's great. And so the plane takes off. Folks, that plane takes right off, and she's buckled in, and she whispers to the parrot, still in her blouse, and she says, just keep calm. You hang out, and you know what? We'll get there and get this done. And, sure enough, after, about an hour, 2 hours of flying, the pilot comes back, and he's got a big cigar, and he's chomping away and puffing that big thing. Well, this is not your regular kind of airline. And he's walking down the aisle puffing the big cigar, and he's saying to all the passengers, "Hiya, folks, hope you like it, and hope you like it. Hope we'll see you again another time." And he's just chatting, kibitzing with people as they fly along. And he walks back, and the woman with the parrot is thinking to herself, "I know this guy's just going to come up there. I don't want to deal with the pilot." And sure enough, the pilot comes up with the cigar, and he says, "I hope you're enjoying the flight, ma'am." She says, yes, thank you." And she thinks that's the end of it. And suddenly the parrot goes, "Rah!" And the pilot has taken a step away, and he comes back and says, "What was that?" And she says, "What was what? I don't," and she goes, and she pretends to cough and says, "Well, I have a cough. It might be, you might have heard that." And suddenly the bird again just goes, and the pilot looks at her and says, "Did you bring a parrot on this plane?" And she's crushed. "Well, I had to." He reaches right in, takes that parrot out from her blouse there, and he's holding it with one hand, and he says, "You can't do this." He reaches over to the window, opens the window, tosses the parrot out, and slams the window shut. The woman just goes nuts. "Ah! How could you do that? And the woman then looks at him with rage in her eyes and takes the cigar out of his mouth, just whips it out of his mouth, just says, Here, you're not supposed to be doing this either." She opens the window again and throws the cigar out and slams the window shut. There, what do you think of that? Well, the pilot's enraged anyway, but he's on a flight, and he turns back around and goes into the cockpit to get this flight done, and he doesn't want to even think about her. And he's there, and he sits back down, he buckles up, and he puts the headset on, and suddenly, he hears this tapping on the window. The window in the cockpit, and he's on the side, and he looks over, and there's the parrot. It's the parrot outside the window, and he's holding something. Do you know what he's holding? That brick. He's holding the brick from the first joke. And I thought that was cute, and so did Jeff, and he's kind of shaking his head now. It's a little knuckleheaded, but that's a fun joke, the way all jokes should be. And I think we could say safely that it's the sort of joke that, well, a Marine comes home and couldn't tell you, he can't tell you the other jokes they joke about in service there on deployment. And but he could tell me this one, and that's a pretty good one. So once again, if you like it, folks, pass it along to those you love. And that brings me to my second favorite part of the show, the Poetry Corner. The Poetry Corner. I think that guy coughing maybe should put that big cigar down himself. Maybe that's why he's coughing. Anyway, this is very lovely, this poem. It's called 1914 V, The Soldier, and it's by Rupert Brooke. Brooke was British, and he lived from 1887 to 1915, the heart of World War I. At the start of the war, he was in the Royal Naval Volunteer Service, and he was involved deeply in the battle at Antwerp. And because of what he saw there at Antwerp, he wrote 5 sonnets. The one I read now, by the way, is the 5th. They are all patriotic. He died of blood poisoning on his way to serve in the Dardanelles. And he was very famous and popular when he died. And I think this poem is one of the reasons for it. 1914 V, The Soldier, by Rupert Brooke. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam. A body of England's breathing English air, washed by the rivers, blessed by sons of home. And think, this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends, and gentleness in hearts at peace under an English heaven. Isn't that lovely? I hope you once again pass that along as well. Good work to Rupert Brooke. Very meaningful. And he wrote about someone who gave his all, and then Rupert gave his all too. And that brings me to my third favorite part of the show. MMM, the Magic Movie Moment. This is a good one, too. And, there's so many movies that have magic moments in them. But I said both to my son and to Colonel Jeff, you know what, let's do something about the Marines. Let's find a good Marine movie. And we all have them. You do, too. And there are so many. But, this one is a great one. It's called Taking Chance. From 2009, it's starring Kevin Bacon. Oh, what a cast. Wonderful, wonderful folks. And this is a movie that was originally made for TV. And it was a tribute to a real man, Lieutenant Colonel, who was played by Kevin Bacon, who had many tours of duty in, the wars in the Middle East at that time in Iraq. And he made a suggestion to his commanding officer about a way a certain battle should be run, and the commander disagreed with him and didn't take the suggestion. And he said, to himself, and he had seen so much and been involved in so much hurt and so much death of Americans and of Marines. And he said, you know what? I think I've had it with battle for now. And he had himself transferred to a very special kind of unit in the Marines. They return the dead bodies of our Marines who've been killed to their homes. They accompany them and they guide them. And this was a real soldier named Chance Phelps, and he was 19 years old. And he was from Wyoming, from a small place in Wyoming. And he was killed in action in Iraq. And the Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Bacon, was assigned to take him home, taking Chance. And you know what, folks? It's a wonderful story that's all true. But this happens a lot. I didn't know about it before seeing this good movie. That, to see, and Kevin Bacon is such a great actor, and to see him, play it under a lot of what he normally does. He was holding back. The character didn't know really what to feel, and we see him as he goes from Iraq and then back the different steps just to get to the airport in America. And then he takes some trains and he's with the coffin and Chance's coffin, and Chance is all dressed up and he's all made up and he's ready to go home. And Kevin Bacon takes him by train and then another plane to Billings, Montana. And from there, they get in a car that Kevin's driving, that the lieutenant colonel drives, to take him home to Wyoming. And the magic movie moment I wanted to talk about today, it's a wonderful movie. Please see it if you haven't. But on that ride, first of all, just the flight attendant kneels down next to Kevin Bacon, who's in his full dress blues. And that, how did she know? They all know. How do people know? That's what this magic movie moment is about, really. How do we know? How do they get the news? The answer is they know. They find out. And this flight attendant knelt down next to him and said something very beautiful. Just briefly, thank you for doing this. And she passed him, she had in her hand, she passed and put it in his hand, a cross with a gold chain around it, a thin chain, that she was wearing until she took it off a moment before. And she gave him that and closed his fingers around it. And that, I've seen that movie several times. And you know what? That really touched me. The things we do, the things people do. Isn't that a sweet one? And then she did that and just stood up and went about taking care of her other passengers there. But that was very meaningful to me. And in the same texture, in the same tone, on the car ride, once they land at Billings, Montana, and, well, the pilot tells the folks on the plane what's happening and who the colonel is, and that they're going to let him, get off the plane first and take care of Private Phelps. So he asks the passengers, of course, to not get up right away and let the colonel do that. And, of course, they agree. They go along with that. And they get into a car, and there's, great texture of showing the colonel just waiting by the plane in the hangar there while they take the coffin out, where local Marines are, and bring the coffin out. And he looks at it as we look at it. They put the coffin in the car, and off the colonel drives from Billings, Montana into Wyoming. And another moment occurs where a convoy of cars forms, and it grows to a mile long with their headlights on. It's in the middle of the day, to quietly escort the private home. Again, how did they know? They know. And Kevin Bacon sees in the mirror, and he's, of course, leading, and he's not going fast, and neither are they. And they escort him and Private Phelps home. You know what? It's a terrific movie, and those scenes in it are at the core for me. Taking Chance from 2009, starring Kevin Bacon. It's the movie to be seen again and again. And, well, celebrated like a holiday. Which made me think of, by the way, Cinco De Mayo, which was just a few days ago, just 4 or 5 days ago. And that's, the 5th of May, which is what Cinco de Mayo means. And you think to yourself, well, that's a big, big Mexican holiday. But you know what, folks? I only ran into this 8 or 10 years ago, what that holiday is. I don't know if you know what it means. Well, what is Cinco de Mayo? And maybe you don't. I don't think there's one, whether you're American, English, Mexican, it doesn't matter. I think, folks, you can ask someone, and they think, well, what is that, Mexican Independence Day? And it sounds like it ought to be, but no, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. And it's a wonderful story that in 1862, when Mexico was ruled and owned by the French, there was, in fact, I think he called himself the emperor. And so it was a French place. And but that was Mexico in 1862. And something happened that had never happened before in Mexico. They won a battle against the French. The French were marching, and they had a lot of army folks there, and they were marching their troops who'd been transferred back home to France, and they were marching them down, through dirt roads and out in the desert country there, back to a ship to go back to France. And the Mexican army was a smart move. They dug trenches on both sides of the road, which wasn't, by the way, a paved road. It's not like a highway. This was a dirt road. And they buried themselves down in these trenches on both sides. And when the French came by, marching in their uniforms and with their guns, well, the Mexicans fired on them, and a battle ensued. But the Mexicans won. They took them all down, and oh boy, they killed a lot of them. And so you know what? That was, by the way, a big victory for them. And that took place on the 5th of May, 1862. And that was, and still is, that's what Cinco de Mayo means. It's not about independence from another country. It's not about, getting more scholarships than any place else. It's about a victory in a big battle over the French, who ruled them in that time and weren't kidding around. So if it comes up again, that's what Cinco de Mayo is, and that's what it means. Now, there's, afterwards, almost exactly a year later, the French, and by the way, as countries do, the French came back with more soldiers, and a lot of them. And they went to war again, and they beat the Mexicans very badly. In fact, far worse than they'd been beaten. But there's no holiday for that. That doesn't get celebrated a lot. But still, you know what? That's you never know. I never knew what the 5th of May meant in Mexico. And the way schools go and families go, I'll bet you not 1 in 1,000 Mexican kids knows that either. But there you are. Now you know it. And it means so much to have when soldiers are brave. Or as I know from my son's service that, the Marines aren't soldiers. They're Marines. That's a very specific thing. You wouldn't want to make that mistake. And, you could make it, but you'd only make it once. And the rest of the time you'd be looking like a hockey player without teeth here and without teeth there. But you know what? It's great to have our Marine home. As I said, he made his own breakfast and we just stared at him. And Ethan is coming out to lunch with me and the Colonel, and we'll pick a nice place. Oh, it doesn't have to be so fancy, I guess, but it doesn't have to be, a French restaurant, the way we went the other night, that my wife really loved and just really wanted to make reservations for, and we did. And my son, the Marine, had their local fried chicken as a dinner. Rather, we went on the dinner reservations. And I just thought maybe we might go back to Bob's Big Boy and have they make a pretty good fried chicken. And it's called the Big Pappy Parker's Fried Chicken. I haven't asked yet, but who that guy was? They have two kinds, one with pancakes, one without. And we'll go somewhere nice, folks, and I know it, and you know it. Because we know the same things. Homer is Homer, and Pluto is a planet. So remember, as always, if you walked out of bed today and had a job to go to and a home to come back to and someone there who cares about you, folks, the game's over and you've won. And if you have a loved one visiting, boy, that makes it extra special. Be well. We'll see you here next time.